Hello and welcome to the Animation Communication Podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join your host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Lauren Kizich, the Abbey Roadie, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to support by giving a like, a follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word and keep being a part of a great community. This episode contains heavy adult language and is not appropriate for young children. Can't.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Animation Communication. Today we're going to talk about stuff and things and how it's okay to like cartoons and be a nerd. You know, that's what the internet was made for. So anyway, we have a guest and he is actually joining us for the news segment. Sometimes the guests join us for that, sometimes they don't. It depends if they like cartoons in general. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? We'll get into more details in general, but tell the people who you are, what you do on the YouTubes, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I'm ToonrificTariq. I do, first and foremost, I came up with my name when I was 14, and I'm not really too proud of it. But
gee, I don't know anything about that.
Wait, I didn't even realize you could totally relate to it.
I made a joke. No, my favorite thing is I made a joke about in the collab that we did. So we're doing this post our Home on the Range collab.
Yes.
And so I made it for people who aren't familiar with the content, a lot of people are like, what the fuck is an I Love Kim Possible a Lot? So usually I try to break the ice and say yeah, I know it's a stupid name, I've been told. And how I introduced myself in this review is I know Joe from the comments, and my favorite thing is someone named Joe in the comments responded to it, and I'm just yay, I did it.
There's always a Joe. There's a Joe somewhere out there that has something to say.
Or a Mike Smith, or some common, stupid American name.
Any Smith. Smiths are any
yeah,
Smith.
that's what I was gonna say. John Smith. It's the generic name that they stick on credit card ads when they say get this credit card and they put a sample name and it's John Smith number 012345.
Yeah, no one wants to be a Smith.
I mean, we actually did a study about this in high school, I remember, and we realized that the Smith is nice because people don't really have any expectations for a Smith because it can kind of go with anything. A lot of the Jewish stereotype names will you're a banker, you're a jeweler, you're a stockbroker or something. But Smith, you could just be a spy, and people. Will Smith was a bird spy in that movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, hello.
I don't know how I feel about having a last name and people telling me that they have zero expectations because of my last name.
Well, you could have just any expectation. So it's
That's true.
You could have zero, or you can have all the expectations because it's not grouped with something. So anyway, we're getting off track. So go watch Home on the Range breakdown that we did. It was neat. It's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I watched it recently myself, and I absolutely loved it. So good job, you guys.
Oh, thank you.
I got my giggles out of it.
Yeah.
That line was you talked about it in your audio. It was a really on the nose. It took me 3 months to write this, but I gave that line to you.
I mean,
and I was about to say when I drew that the Jennifer Tilly cow on months ago, I'm is this what it's relating to now?
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I never saw Home on the Range beforehand, so I've seen most of the animated canon except Home on the Range and Cat's Gonna Kill Me. She knows this, but I haven't seen the Three Caballeros and that kind of stuff. So. But I was loathing it because I also remember seeing ads and just this is a stupid, I don't want to see this, and so but I've heard kind of mixed things. So I made Lauren, who is also we're equally animation nerds, so that's why I stole her to do this podcast, but I asked her to watch the movie with me because I was just I'm afraid. So
I had to keep reassuring her. Trust me, it's like for a lot of people, it's actually kind of a guilty pleasure. There's some good stuff in it.
Yeah.
You just have to watch it. And it's actually not that long of a movie either.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah,
it's like, trust me, the design aesthetic of it is really good. Some of I love the character designs. And it's like, you could tell it was trying to go somewhere. It's just the writing kind of derailed it.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing about like in general with like animated films or TV shows or whatever. Like you'll always kind of hear somebody call something lazy, and like I was talking to a couple of my friends about it. It is impossible to make a lazy animated movie. Like making a cartoon is impossible in general. So like you have to put effort in order to make something, like make animation. Like there's no such thing as lazy. When it comes to that, animators are like some of the hardest working people. Really, it does come down, for Home on the Range, it really does come down to like characters and pacing and all of that stuff. Like I sat through that movie 4 times.
Oof. Yeah.
This year.
You lost
4
some bets,
different
didn't
months.
you?
4 different months. Sat through 4 different times, and I didn't want to shoot myself or anything like that, but it was kind of like, all right, son, this is the last time. I can't do this anymore.
I mean, you know, I think at the end of the day, it's like the animation, especially Disney animation or like some of the Warner Brother animation, the Golden Age animation is always great. It's just sometimes the writing itself, it just doesn't feel like it deserves the, you know, the animation that goes into it. Because, you know, especially how studios work these days, like, you know, the animation is shipped out to like Korea or whatever, sometimes Canada. And, you know, when you're a writer, you just don't, like, sometimes you don't have any gravity to know how much work the actual animators have to do. And then you're like, oh man, I would have rewritten that joke if I knew they spent like 12 hours on that one scene. So, you know, I think we have an advantage, Lauren and I, kind of doing both, because like we know how much work animation is, and we don't want to like go through the whole ordeal without, you know, making something we're proud of and that we feel like is a sound product throughout. So at least from our understanding, sometimes they'll release stuff and people are like, that's shit, and I'm just like, oh, I didn't realize that thing that you pointed out in the comments. But, you know, from our understanding, it's mostly like good enough, I guess, like good from our perception. Anyway, I'm talking a lot.
Nah, I feel like I totally get that. And just like, not even just doing these videos, but like in doing my own animated projects and doing like my student films and stuff. It's kind of like, I've learned that there's, no matter how picture perfect you try to make something, there's always going to be some kind of thing that somebody notices that someone doesn't like and that they're going to point out. You know, that's just kind of like the nature of creating and making something. You could see the most perfect movie in the world, something like Roger Rabbit, and I'm pretty sure there's someone out there that has a problem with it. I don't know who that person is, and nor do I really feel like I want to meet them. But like, if there is somebody has a problem with it somewhere, you know.
Jessica Rabbit is too voluptuous. Said no one ever.
Said no male ever. How about that? But yeah, if you haven't seen Roger Rabbit, like, I don't know what you're doing while listening to an animation podcast, but you know,
there's
go see
people that
Roger Rabbit.
It blows my mind. There's people that haven't seen Roger Rabbit, and it blows my mind.
I really wish they would find a way to reinvent it too, because I think it would be really neat, like, to have like some new Roger Rabbit IP coming out, like. But I think it's probably a copyright issue. But what were you gonna say?
I know some people that do analysis videos and cartoon analysis videos that haven't seen Roger Rabbit, and I'm like, you just delete your channel. Like, you can't do this anymore.
We're revoking your Toon analysis card right now.
You have no credibility. You haven't seen Roger Rabbit. You can't produce these videos anymore. Stop it.
No, it's always the people that haven't seen Roger Rabbit but swear up and down by Space Jam, and I'm just like, you need to stop.
I remember I recently like watched that again when it happened to be on TV, and I sat through that, and I'm just like, the soundtrack's good.
It's so bad. Space Jam is
like
so
the
bad.
soundtrack was the soundtrack was the best part about it, and that's what pains me is that's why I remain really hopeful for the sequel that's coming out. I really truly hope that it's not so much just product placement product placement inside product placement the movie like the first one was. It was clearly a product of the times, mid-90s, and just advertising and it was just brand placement and promotion, and I mean that's what it was. It was one giant commercial for other commercials. And this time around though, it's fueled by the nostalgia for the movie, but I feel like, I mean, they got really talented people on board to work on the Looney Tunes and stuff to make this happen in the sequel. I have more hope for it in being a much higher quality product going forward, because I mean, I feel like the first one, it was just made to be a giant advertisement, which I guess we were already fully aware of that, and I don't know if everybody on the team was okay with that, but they're like, oh, we gotta do it.
The wild thing about Space Jam is just like how like, okay, I don't want to say there's nothing good about it, but like it's so like, I never really realized. I saw it in theaters. They put it out a couple years ago for the 20th anniversary. This 2016, I think. I went and saw it in theaters because I'm like, it's 2D. It's 2D animation. I'm gonna see it on the big screen. It's gonna be a really fun time. And I went, and like it was the first time I'd seen the film in years, and I was like, oh my god. First of all, I don't like how it looks. It is kind of. Space Jam kind of does the Home on the Range thing where it doesn't look like a movie for a good portion of it. And then like, just a lot of stuff that they probably couldn't help, like, early computer assets and stuff like that look really weird today. There's a lot of stuff that's like really out of
Michael
control.
Jordan not being an actor,
Michael Jordan is so bad. He's so bad. He's
the
so
saving
bad
grace.
in Space Jam.
The saving grace was random Bill Murray coming into it. So it's
that's
like he didn't even really have
funny.
to do anything. He just was there, and I'm like, okay.
It's so fun. It's like it's really tongue in cheek with it too. It's like I forget the line that he says.
No, he comes in and he's like, dun 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 dun. So with this stupid fucking umbrella hat thing that he wears half the movie, I don't know.
I love it.
But
Bill Murray
yeah,
might be. I'm pretty sure he's the best thing about Space Jam.
Oh God. I don't know. Before we get to the news, I'll do a segment because I don't think I've told this story before on the podcast. But so what Bill Murray does is when he's old and doesn't have anything else to do is that he'll go to sometimes he'll troll people in New York. So he'll like if someone's eating food, he'll go up, he'll take a fry. And then he, like, whispers to people or he says something. He's just like, and no one will ever believe you. And then he leaves. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because no one would. They're just like, Bill Murray came up and he just ate a fry and he left. And people are like, what? Why would he, like, eat? That doesn't make any sense. But I'm convinced. Go ahead, Lauren.
I was going to say that's 100% sounds like something he would do. And it just made me think of, oh yeah, just as much as people would believe that M.A. Larson signed a stick of celery and gave it to our table, which actually did happen at BronyCon last year, by the way.
Oh.
Like with the Sharpie?
Yes.
I love celery. I would have ate it.
Yeah, I have a ton of fun of Mitch stories, but that's for another time. Lauren, what's going on in the news and the animation news place thing?
Well, I will say there is a couple little bits about streaming services, because streaming services seem to be one of the biggest engines for animation and animated content now, besides YouTube, obviously. And right around the corner, at least as of recording this, is the debut of NBC's Peacock. It's supposed to launch on July 15th. And at least how they're advertising it is it's free. And by free, I think it's supposed to be more or less that you can get it for free and watch a limited library with ads. for free, but then you obviously pay more to like get, you know, more content. And then so there's like two other tiers. There's premium and premium ad free. I feel like that explains everything. One's gonna have ads, one's not gonna have ads. But to try it out, you can get it for free, and you could. I was gonna say, but for free, you can try it out, and you can even stick with free as far as however long they run that. Which I'm sure they're banking on a lot of people trying to download it for the free stuff. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the way to do it because, you know, with Disney Plus and then HBO Max, which I guess is partnered with Turner to release like Rick and Morty and like Scooby-Doo or whatever, you know, like people aren't really motivated to buy like another thing. So having it free might entice people, you know, if it was coming out like maybe at like right before Netflix, sure, maybe. But like, you know what's going to be on the platform that might make people spend money on it?
Well, I know for a fact that they're banking on, at least as far as I know, they're banking on having the entire Universal Library as much as I can gather. Considering a lot of people, if they use Hulu, for those who use Hulu and for those of you who do not use Hulu, I'm going to restate that Hulu has plugins, so you can have these like little plug-in add-ons for your app, so you can keep adding, you know, more content, more movies, more shows like that, like Showtime and Stars and all that stuff. Now, most people don't want to have to do that because it means it's like $15 extra to just add on a plugin for something you're already paying. If you're going the ad-free route, it's like $12 a month as is. So what I see with Universal launching this, and if they're to have all of their movies there, you'd basically be bypassing the plugins on Hulu, because as far as I know, with like Stars and Showtime, depending on who owns them, I wish I did more research on that part, but I'm trying to remember who owns what now. They're all connected, but you'd be able to get a lot of movies and shows that you wouldn't have gotten through Hulu unless you had the plugins. So that's another thing. Because there's a lot of movies that every time I go to Hulu, I'm like, oh, I want to watch this movie. Ah, dang it, I need Stars. Or dang it, I need Showtime. And fortunately now I have HBO Max, so I don't need the HBO plugin.
Yeah, I'm gonna start stealing your passwords for stuff because you have everything. And like I think we have YouTube TV as I'm stuck here at my parents' house, and then
meanwhile I don't have YouTube Red or YouTube TV or anything like that. That's where I go. No, I'm not.
If I see fucking Anderson Cooper one more time talking about how bad COVID is, I'm gonna cry.
If I see any more of those ads that have John Legend's song and all these celebrities saying, go support your local restaurants while playing the song Bigger Love, I'm going to flip.
Oh my god.
For people stuck on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. You probably get it every other video.
Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, I was going to say the other headline is, speaking of streaming services, CBS All Access, I believe that's already launched. They are also coming out with new content coming up, and that includes this trailer that dropped just a couple days ago for Star Trek Lower Decks, which is actually created by Mike McMahon, who created Solar Opposites for Hulu, and he was a writer and producer on Rick and Morty. So I guess what we can say is it's Star Trek, but Rick and Morty. Or at least in terms of the comedy writing. But I can tell by the trailer that, I mean, personally, I like what I see, and I'm excited to see where they go with it. But obviously, with fandoms, it's always very hard to please the masses if you're not 100%, true to canon and this and that. So I noticed a lot of Trekkies were, going, oh, this looks bad and this and that. But then I have other people that are like, no, give it a chance. This could be good. So, I mean, the animation looks pretty darn good based on what I saw in the trailer. So, I mean, yeah, I'd personally check it out. But yeah, that's for our CBS All Access.
So my question is, can you explain, where this falls in the lore timeline thing? Because I watched a preview.
Yeah, this good question. I made sure it is actually after every other series, so it's in the current timeline, its own timeline. I guess you could say it's like after Picard, after this and that. So I mean, it's like after every other generation, so it's in its own timeline.
Oh, okay.
And it's not even on the Enterprise. It's on another ship called the USS Cerritos, which is hilarious because they named it after like not exactly the best city in California. Sorry, city of Cerritos, but that's the point of the joke.
They'll be okay.
But yeah, it's so basically if you couldn't tell by the title Lower Decks, it revolves around members of the crew aboard the USS Cerritos that are in the lower decks of the ship, and so and it basically it's a whole bunch of younger members of the crew that are kind of like there's superiors above them that work in the upper decks, and so basically it's going on, it's Star Trek but with that more comedic spin on it, and I guess more if you watch Rick and Morty and if you watch Solar Opposites, I guess that's what you may get. And some people are saying that the art style looks similar, and the art style and the vibe are similar to Final Space as well. So if you've watched Final Space, ladies and gentlemen, then you probably will know what you're gonna get with the new Star Trek show. So we'll see.
Tarek, did you watch Final Space or any of these new things that came out, like Solar Opposites? Because I've seen Solar Opposites, but I haven't seen Final Space because it looked kind of weird. But
I've seen maybe half an episode of Final. Like I haven't even like it's nothing against the show. I just kind of like never put myself on to watch it. A lot of new stuff I kind of just like fall back on because my job is talking about older stuff.
I feel that.
Yeah, so like I haven't seen much of Final Space. I haven't seen Solar Opposites at all, like whatsoever. The most I know about it is from what my friends say about it, and they say it's cool. They say it's like it stands on its own and this is distinguishable enough from Rick and Morty and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, have you've seen Solar Opposites, right, Lauren?
I've actually only seen clips, but
okay, I'll take this one then. So if you
go ahead and take that.
If you haven't seen Solar Opposites, essentially, it's in the same art style as Rick and Morty. I don't know if it's in the same universe yet. They don't really talk about it, but it's implied by the art style. But anyway, so I
hope not, son. I hope they don't do the Phineas and Ferb, Milo Murphy's Law thing. I hate that.
I mean,
what, you don't like crossovers?
No, I do love crossovers, but like Doofenshmirtz goes to live with Milo Murphy at like it starts to get really weird. I don't want that to happen again.
But you can never have enough Doofenshmirtz. But
Evil Incorporated.
Very true. I just have Doof PTSD, I guess.
It all started when I was born. My parents didn't even show up for my own birth.
Just thinking about the implications of that. Like his parents aren't there when he's born.
He just appeared out of the ether.
So yeah, it's basically about this, buddy comedy alien team thing. And they have children that are like clones of them or something. I think it's it's not as nihilistic as Rick and Morty, I think, is the biggest distinction. Like, one is a happy-go-lucky character, and the other one's just kind of, like, more cynical, but not Rick levels of cynical. I think the biggest, or the most interesting thing that Solar Opposites has done, like, purposely, is they have this, like, C-plot where one of the aliens shrinks down people and puts them in, like, a people wall. So think, like, a huge hamster cage of just, like, people. And they, like, ration, food, and they have this whole market system and like hierarchy and stuff like that. So that part gets really interesting. If you like Rick and Morty, I'd say give it a shot. It's definitely different enough that it doesn't feel repetitive, but it also is kind of has the fun adult humor kind of aspect of it too. I don't know. And then I haven't seen Final Space. All I know is Conan O'Brien helped with it, I guess. So
I think he does a voice or something. I don't know.
He either does a voice or he I think he executive produced it or something. Like, and if you don't know, Conan O'Brien was a writer on The Simpsons, like back in the day, so he knows how to do things.
Yeah.
Monorail, monorail, monorail.
He's definitely, he was like a staff writer, and he was a part of like a really big era, but like he only has like 2 writing credits. It was the monorail one and the and Homer Goes to College are his 2. Both from like the same era. I think Monorail might be season 4, and Homer Goes to College is season 5. And yeah, then there's an episode in like the 5th season where like Bart does that "I didn't do it" thing, and he has that catchphrase, and he goes on the Conan O'Brien show. But when they did that, there was no Conan O'Brien show.
Yeah, it was because it was like not long after The Simpsons, he went to work on, either he went to work on SNL or he went to work on the Late Show, hosting the was it the Late Show? Yes. And
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because, and I remember being this, he was just, I mean, I think he was like, in his late 20s, I think, when he took that on, and he wasn't even sure what to make of it, but he couldn't even believe that he had landed the gig. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right people, and yeah, but I think they said he was working on The Simpsons when he got the news that he got the position, and he just was collapsed on the floor of the writer's room.
Oh, so this is now the Conan O'Brien podcast, where we talk about the wholesome Conan O'Brien stories.
If you know Conan O'Brien's telegraphy, then let us know in the comments. I don't fucking know. Okay, let's get to the actual meat of the podcast. So today we're talking about liking cartoons even though society tells us that it's wrong. So this happens a lot. And this is where ToonariqicTariq will kind of give his spiel a little bit too. So I guess Lauren can be in the white corner. I guess I'm in the Jewish corner, and ToonariqicTariq is in the black corner. So this is our multicultural round table, quote unquote. So, but anyway, this happens a lot where, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure it's happened to you, or if you know some animation people, essentially you either have an obsessive personality and or you just like cartoons, and your parents are like, okay, so when are you gonna grow out of this? And then, as you get older, it just kind of never happens, essentially. So, I mean, and then you turn out to be 25 or 26, and you're writing about cartoons for YouTube, and then you contemplate your life choices. But anyway, which I think that kind of comes with a lot of its own challenges, because we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, because sometimes as girls it's easier to get away with liking a lot of the animation movies, like even in your teenage years, without people really thinking about it, because a lot of the Renaissance movies are princess themed for the most part, so people are just like, oh, they just like the princess aesthetic, or they relate to a character really hardcore, or they just like Belle's outfit or whatever, so they Disney bound Belle or whatever. So that's just something I've noticed. And then obviously Lauren and I come from the brony subculture, which, if you don't know, there's a lot of guys that liked My Little Pony specifically, but that usually turned into other cartoons as well, Steven Universe, whatever really Adventure Time, things that were out in the 2010s that were like kind of popular with everyone. But there's I think the gap is kind of slowly getting smaller, but I think in the 90s and the 80s, like with the kind of in and out of Ralph Bakshi and like things like Ren and Stimpy, it was more universally accepted for adults to like certain specific animation, and obviously The Simpsons, as we were just talking about, but not things that were more general for everyone kind of thing. And then Shrek helped that as well. So ToonariqicTariq, talk about like growing up liking cartoons and people judging you, and that kind of like how like when did you start loving cartoons, or when did people start kind of commenting that like maybe you're too old for this, or this is kind of odd? Did you have those kind of experiences?
So really it was kind of like my grandmother taught me how to draw when I was like 1. So as soon as I was able to like hold the pencil kind of thing.
Aw.
And I was kind of known for that. Like when I went to school, or like with family or anything like that, like people would know me, was like, oh, he draws. So they would quickly associate me drawing to why I loved cartoons so much. And like they would think that I was so good at it that like even like the older that I got, there wasn't really like sort of a judgmental thing with it. It was more like, oh, he's supposed to like cartoons because he draws and that's what he's gonna do. So it makes sense. Now with me, I was one of those kids. Mind you, I'm 22. I turned 23 in December. I'm 22, so
You're a bab.
gives you a little. It gives you like a little like you understand like how like what era I grew up in, and it's weird that like I was just like even prefacing it with like this time period. Like I was like the kid that was going to the playground and like quoting Animaniacs. We were not around. We were not born when Animaniacs was still running. Like it was in reruns, sure, but like no, like but I was doing it. I was saying a whole bunch of Animaniacs jokes in the playground and stuff. But like I was doing it like when you're kind of too old to do that. Like I was like 12 and 13 doing that kind of thing, and like you know I would get like sort of weird looks, but I was always kind of seen as the weird kid in general. So like it was kind of just like, oh, that's just what he does. And really it's I don't know what ignited it. It might have been when I got to high school. It might have been just one day when I just kind of looked in the mirror, but I just kind of thought about it and I said, I'm not like everybody around me. Like I don't speak like them. Like I don't like the exact same things. I don't think about the same thing. And like no one really gave me any crap for it, but at the same time I felt this really massive disconnect. So what happened was I kind of morphed myself. Like the way that I talk in my videos and the way that I talk now is like a reflection of me trying to like match and adapt with like everybody I grew up with in my environment and so forth kind of thing. Like I didn't always like sound like this. My sense of humor wasn't always the exact same way. Like I would say the jokes and like the way I say the jokes in the videos is kind of reflected on just like how I kind of like changed myself in order to fit in, for lack of a better term. Well, you know, I don't necessarily like feel bad about that. I do like how I speak now, and I do like my sense of humor and so forth. But there was kind of this fear of I never felt like I wouldn't be accepted, but I always did kind of feel like I wouldn't be accepted in the way that I wanted to. It was always like, oh, that's just how he is, instead of like, oh yeah, that's my friend, that's a normal guy kind of thing. Really for me, the patronizing stuff came from getting older and noticing that I couldn't talk about like the new cartoon that came on last night. Like the amount of friends that you could have that conversation with as the grades go on kind of diminishes. When you're in like 3rd and 4th grade, if Fairly Odd Parents came on last night, you can go to the lunch table and the entire lunch table saw the episode. But when you're like in 8th grade and you're like 14, like people are on like that's when kids were on like MySpace and Facebook. Like it doesn't matter anymore. God. Like I think like what came out that year? I think like Adventure Time might have came out. And I go to school and it's like maybe like 1 or 2 people I could talk to about it, but like everybody else is just kind of like, what? They did what? They have a new what? I don't care. They still make chowder? Is that still on? That kind of thing. It's like, no, they don't.
Chowder is the shit. So
chowder's great.
Go back even
Flapjack
further.
And chowder,
Flapjack.
they're both great. They're both great. But yeah, that was really like kind of patronizing to see people kind of you know, just like if I made something, if I made a cartoon, my friends would watch it, but they would only watch it because of me. They wouldn't watch it because they thought it was like good entertainment or something like that.
Right.
That kind of stuff was always really patronizing. Just being around in that era where like Adventure Time comes out and then like regular show comes out, and then like, you know, the perception kind of changes. Adventure Time made cartoons cool, and like you kind of hear people start talking about it a little more. You get to high school. I went to an art high school, so that helped even more. You get to high school and like there's like people that saw Steven Universe last night, or people that saw The Leak, hush hush, like that kind of thing. And like, I don't know, it's really, there's like a lot of ups and downs in growing up, appreciating animation and like different cultures and stuff. I feel like maybe if I was in a different era, like if I grew up maybe 10 years before, like I don't know if I would be the same. I don't know if my interest would still be in it, just because like there wasn't that Adventure Time thing that made cartoons cool 10 years ago. It was just kind of like, you know, these are here and they're good if you pay attention. Like cartoons were never bad, they're still good if you pay attention, but like not a lot of people were paying attention, at least not like now.
So you think that maybe if, you know, there weren't kind of like the trope coolifying, bad use of term, but you know, if there wasn't like the more general cartoons, it would be harder for you to kind of keep on watching it, because it would be harder to reflect on it with other people to talk about it. Because, you know, I imagine, like, I'm just thinking back, like 7th and 8th grade time, you know, a lot of people wanted the edgy new stuff, and they wanted to go see the PG-13 movies or whatever. And sometimes cartoons are like, oh, those are for babies, you know, with the exceptions of things like The Simpsons sometimes. And, you know, now we have a much more thicker plethora of adult animations, specifically, so it's easier for people to be like, well, if I like Rick and Morty or if I like Family Guy, then maybe I'll like this thing like Adventure Time, or this thing, you know, that might not be quote unquote adult, but it's still a cartoon. It still might be funny. I like the cartoon sense of humor and pacing. I'm trying to think my own experiences, but yeah, I think too it also like has to do with just being a very what's the word of I'm thinking of the word antisocial child, essentially. So a lot of, you know,
Gotcha.
I'm sure you had similar experiences where you were just kind of playing in your head, and, you know, a lot of this stuff was kept internally because, you know, people would think that it was still, like, you could probably talk about it, but not in the sense as much as you want to. And as I got an old...
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of had to, you know, reflect on it on your own, and, you know, like, it's different than it was like back in my day. But now that we have the internet and it's much more prevalent, and then, like, you know, there's always the kids that are going to the pony cons or whatever, the conventions, and they're cosplaying. It just seems like it's a much more inclusive environment comparatively to, it's easier to have that bridge gap of, you know, going from a child to like a young adult but still liking cartoons, non-ironically, I guess. And Lauren, I was going to ask your opinion too, since you grew up in LA, like, you know, the animation town, like, how was the culture different from what we're describing, or was it the same, or like, what's your vibe?
Well, for me, growing up, it was, I mean, it's funny because, Tariq, I was a lot like you in that from a very, very early age, it took picking up a pencil to fall in love with drawing, and I was obsessed with animated movies as a kid, like just watching nonstop Disney movies and Looney Tunes and old Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, that was my thing. And quoting cartoons, oh gosh, the stories I could tell of all the times I annoyed people with quoting commercials and TV and movies. And like at least 80% of my dialogue was quotes. So
yes,
and
definitely.
So and references and all of these things that over time just people like at the time, people probably didn't get them. But then over time, as certain properties got nostalgic, people went, oh yeah, I watched that the other day. I understand that reference. So it's, that kind of thing. But yeah, for me growing up, it was I was very much supported in my artistic endeavors and in going into the industry. But yeah, in terms of meeting with people and making friends with that similar interest, it was, I think, in terms of having a tighter knit group that had all of those similar interests, it was especially in high school, which I had a small group of friends, but we're to this day, we still talk on a daily basis, and we all pretty much were all members of the anime club at my school. So that was where we we all connected through anime and then in turn animation. So and so they all got it when I would make references to things, and they understood. And so I'm like, oh, I finally found people that get me like
My
that.
people.
Other times I'm the person that, like you, Tariq, I was the kid that draws. So everybody wanted me for projects, and I would be the person that did. And they were like, hey, you draw, right? Can you draw this map, or can you draw this this diagram, and we'll do all the writing. Just you do the drawing.
Just
kind
do
of
the most of the work.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I can write too, but okay. Mm-hmm. But hey, at least people knew what I was good at, and they recognized that over and over. So hey, I can't be too mad at that. So.
I remember when I was like a baby child, so I must have been like first grade or something like that, or second grade, and I really wanted to adapt the Pajama Sam 2 game, video game, into a play. And I just didn't. I cast all my friends in the roles. So there's Pajama Sam, there's Thunder and Lightning. Those are characters, and there's Mother Nature, who's like an onion or something like that. You can go watch a walkthrough if you're curious. Animation's really good, but anyway, and I just didn't know how to plan it. So like we were like, I'm gonna put my Pajama Sam play on Thursday, and then Thursday came and nothing happened because like. I don't know. I'm an idiot. Like, but this was when I was super young, and I think as I got older, I didn't really start to find my people, quote unquote, until I started making YouTube content, and I don't think Tariq, have you been at a convention like as like your YouTube persona, like people knowing that you're going to be there and that whole experience?
Nah, I've actually never been to a convention before. I was supposed to go to MomoCon this year, but the happening. You know what I mean? I can't.
Yeah. Oh my God. Let me tell you. But yeah, I can help you with that. When the happening isn't happening anymore, essentially. But that is also one of the really rewarding parts of it, and I think that's when you start to really. Because they're just like, people are commenting, people are consuming your content, but they're just comments on a screen. And like part of my artistic, batteries are refilled because like even though I'm working at conventions now, I do commissions and I'm usually booked the whole time, and I'm drawing like 12-hour days for 4 days straight. For someone like me who has low energy and is the scientific term is a lazy motherfucker, I think. It's hard, but I get rewarded by people finding me and being like, oh my God, I watch your content all the time, and you're cool, or you make like King Ponies cool, or more recently I used to watch your content all the time, but now I grew out of ponies, and that's why we're not doing as much pony stuff anymore. But I think that's kind of the really rewarding part. So, because you can see that these are real people that you're making an impact on, and that your content is providing kind of like a sense of inclusion essentially too. So, that's what I really miss about, the plague essentially, is I miss that environment, because like, we're still working really hard on content, and I can focus on content full time now, because I got unemployed for temporarily, essentially. But at the same time, it's just like, I feel like I'm just like writing content to the wind, and you know these people exist, and they appreciate what you do, but at the same time, it's just like you miss kind of the face-to-face interaction, essentially. So do you feel like that sometimes?
Yeah, I feel like, in just hearing you say that, I feel like if I were to meet a lot of these people, like I was going to at the convention and stuff, it probably would have put like a sort of battery in my back. I struggle a lot, especially a lot more recently, with putting these videos out. Like my rule is I don't do a video on something that like I don't like. I don't do like the really hyperbolic, yo, this movie's
Or
so
like,
bad
you know,
kind of thing.
we've talked about like the clickbaity YouTubers that are just like, is this weird furry movie 2020? What is this?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, I try not to do stuff like that. There's a pocket for that kind of stuff, and those people that do stuff like that, they do it because they enjoy producing that kind of stuff at the end of the day, It's like, if that's what you enjoy, it's cool. But for me, I kind of, and just in terms of like negative reviews and stuff, it's like the really hyperbolic, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, like this director is so incompetent, why did they give these people jobs? Like, I try not to do, I don't do stuff like that. Like, if especially now that I've made my own series and I've made my own student films, making movies and making cartoons is impossible. So like, you spend a lot of time away from your friends, your family, your loved ones to produce this thing. It takes so much time, and for you to put so much time into something like that, and then you get online and you see some guy in his basement yelling about how you can't do your job right. It's like, fam, all right, like, you even know what I went through to produce this. Like, I understand that you don't like it, it's cool, but you don't gotta be so wild about it. Like, I'm not. So
especially if it's somebody who has no idea how the process works and they still spout off. And so that's when it's worse, because it's like, okay, you are literally not one to talk. You're talking off the top of your head. And yeah, that's where it hurts, is when it's all these people that say these things, but it shouldn't matter. It's like, okay, but you have no idea how the process works. These are like, I've seen too many reviews where it's gone like that, and I'm like, okay, I get it if you're a professional and you're trying to give feedback or critique on something, and you get how the process works, and you know where it can be adjusted, where it can be fixed, where they could have done better, and I totally get that. But when you're somebody who has no idea how the process works, and yet you act like you think you know how it works, that's where it's like, okay, no, just sit down.
Yeah, we're throwing some shade, but anyway, it's fine. I think the two takeaways is like, A, for movies that suck, sometimes we don't know what decisions were in the process. We don't know what kind of things, like, like, that the creative team was struggling with, but the studio was just like, you know what, we need to get this out, we need to we need to call it a day, or whatever, budget, real life problems. So sometimes, like, some really competent people can come from movies that are generally regarded as not that good. Off the top of my head, I know Lauren Faust was an animator on Quest for Camelot, which is not the hottest movie, but it's not the worst movie ever. And the other thing is,
to me, it's a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it. I've just seen reviews of it, and I can kind of, like, the animation I can see is kind of fun, and, like, Gary Oldman seems like he has a fun performance in there, and that kind of thing. And the other aspect of it is just, like, you can't really judge people for liking art. It's more, instead of saying, like, you suck for liking this thing, it's like, this thing could be better. I think you need to think about, like, what aspects do you like? Do you like how the characters look? Do you like how the line is delivered? Do you like how the actors are working? And then kind of also understand what could be better, because it's so disheartening for someone on the internet to basically be saying, like, you don't have a right to have an opinion because I know better than you, as a 25-year-old, like, or 40-year-old in my basement, who doesn't know how to animate. And I think that's kind of the thing too, is
Yeah.
like, as I move forward, I really want to like be a pseudo, like, kind of like, not a role model, but just someone who can give solace in the fact that, like, it's okay to like that thing. You just have to figure out why, and you like universal appeal and all that stuff. Did you want to add something, Tarek?
Yeah, I think like even like to what you were saying, I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with like the real reason that I do these videos in general and why I decided to bring the channel back. I started the channel when I was 14. I was just getting out of 8th grade and I went to go see the Lorax, and then I wrote a video about the Lorax.
The Rock and Wentzler Lorax.
Yeah.
How bad can I be?
Lauren, go in the corner.
I kind of just like...
That's how bad I can be, apparently.
that's exactly how bad I can be. Yeah, I kind of like did those videos on just kind of whatever I wanted for a little while. Kind of did it off and on. I brought it to high school. I did some, and then like I would stop for like a really long time, and then I would just kind of do a couple and then stop for another really long time. In my notes for years, not years, maybe a year and like a half, with my notes was the idea for an analysis on Black cartoon characters, and I just kind of kept that there.
Mm-hmm.
It was in my notes for a really long time, and so one day I just kind of said, you know what, I'm gonna just do this. So I hit up my friend D-Dub from Review Your Life. I hit him up and I said, yo, I'm gonna do this video about Black cartoon characters. If you want anything to add, just let me know. I'm gonna be putting it together soon. I didn't write any notes. I didn't write the video yet. It was still just an idea in my notes. He was like, oh, okay, here's my audio. And he sent me the audio that night. And I was like, okay, I have to make this now. So then I like put the video together, and it took a couple months, but finally got it out, put it out that January 2019. And I remember jokingly, I was on like I feel like I've told this story 50 times. I was on a like this like group FaceTime call with a couple of my friends out here, and I was joking while editing the video, but I said, if this video doesn't get 1 million views, I'm gonna take it down. There was no way I wasn't gonna take it down. I was just joking, but like it actually ended up happening, and it was like really surreal. And like getting all of like the response and all of these comments and people saying how validating a lot of the things said in the video was, and a lot of the messaging, and then like kind of going back to some of my older videos and kind of talking about how like they felt like there was some sort of a validation. There wasn't any really well-known Black person on YouTube talking about cartoons with the same sincerity that you see everyone else do. And it was then where I kind of, it's like the Danny Phantom theme song. It was then when he realized what he had to do. It was then when I like realized like what these videos mean to people, especially the people that look like me and grew up like me. It was kind of like everybody just kind of wants to feel normal. Everybody kind of wants to feel validated. While I didn't face a lot of alienation as a kid, I know for a fact there are a lot of other Black kids that faced way more alienation for the things that they liked. Anime is cool now, but 10 years ago that was not cool. If you watched anime, you was the weird kid running down the hallway like Naruto. Like it wasn't cool. That wasn't fly. So like it was and like seeing someone that like not only looks like you but talks in a familiar way and like talks really conversationally and sounds like, like it sounds like the hip hop podcast that you listen to or something like that, but he's talking about like Brandy and Mr. Whiskers, and he's referencing like all these like weird things that like I can't have any other conversation with people about. And like I would get so many comments from people saying that, and that's when I realized that like the function of like the channel and the function of these videos was to make sure that everybody that grew up loving cartoons feels seen and they feel normal. They don't have to grow up thinking, hey, damn, do I have to grow out of this? Is it not okay to like this? Is there going to be an age where I can't enjoy this? And it's like, no, if this is what makes you happy, if this is what makes you feel good, if you get enjoyment, if you smile because of these characters, if they speak to you in a certain way, it is really, really important that you hold on to that and that you don't change who you are and get away from what makes you happy in order to fit in with what you think or what the world is perceived to be like outside of what you're looking at. You know what I mean? It's cool to be yourself, just generally. Like it's fine, and you know it's easier said than done a lot of the time, especially like growing up in different environments and like not being what the normal version of what somebody that watches this kind of stuff is, or like I don't know, you know, it is really sometimes you need to be told like, hey, you're normal, hey, this is fine, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you're preaching to the choir there, because yeah, that's been a lot of my experience too. You know, not so much. There are still a lot of like female bronies talking about things at the time or whatever, but I think more just like as a fangirl, or like very like centered around one specific character. You know, where you have like I'm looking around my room now, and I still have Discord stuff that I have hung up, and I have things signed by John, and you know, all sorts of stuff here. And you know, I was fortunate enough to grow up in an environment that, for the most part, you know, like obviously society was different, you know, as far as what, you know, people my age were consuming, but I was never like guilted for like, you like this character too much, or like you like there's a problem, like you're just consuming and consuming and consuming, just like it's a fictional character, you need to stop. And I think as long as, you know, you're like, I want to say healthy about it, but as long as you know, like you're not trying to summon your fictional character into the real world by doing like some weird Ouija, you know, witchcrafty bullshit, you know, essentially, you know, it's perfectly fine. You know, I think a lot of times the things we take away from those kind of instances, you know, are, you know, we learn about ourselves through like what we end up liking, and you know, like, so even going back to like, you know, cartoons we gravitate towards, and you know, who our favorite Disney princess and stuff like that is, like, now we can look objectively and say like, okay, so like similar to like, you know, critiquing good and bad art, you know, what aspects do I like about this character, what do I like about this, like, you know, this is an art form, and you know, it tells me like what kind of characters I want to write if I'm writing my original work, like, you know, analyzing, as long as like you, and that's, I think that's also the really insulting thing, is like when we care so deeply about specific characters or specific shows, and like executives don't see that, and they're just like, it doesn't matter, it's fine, or like, God forbid, like things don't get renewed that should get renewed, or you know, we should get some closure on, you know, Harold and stuff like that. But yeah, like, you know, liking Discord, I learned that, you know, I really like there's something endearing about the insecure personality, essentially, that puts on a face, but you know, and is very powerful, but you know, deep inside he like very insecure and very, you know, afraid of being judged, you know, essentially. I don't know, I'm probably getting too philosophical here, but anyway, I remember like one con specifically. So I've done like a bunch of cons, and Lauren has done a bunch of cons by proxy, essentially. You know, like I've gotten like little, like I remember one little girl who was really into C-3PO, like from Star Wars. You know, she had like C-3PO plushie and the whole thing, and she's like, thanks for making like liking one character, you know, kind of normal. And I'm like, you go, girl, you get C-3PO, you know, whatever kind of floats your boat. So, you know, I think, and I think a lot of times like these fictional characters can really inspire us in different ways too. You know, that's pretty mainstream now with Disney characters these days, or like I identify, or which Disney princess are you, or what the fuck ever you're doing. But I think we also have to validate, you know, what it says about ourselves. And you know, it's not bad that you're like 35 and a guy and you're wearing a Disney princess shirt. You know, I don't care. Like, you do you, fam. And like, you know, I know some people will be kind of cryptic about it these days, where they'll have like maybe an outline of a character. Like, I remember specifically, I might have mentioned this in another podcast, but I don't know if you're aware of this time around. But so for bronies, one of the secret brony shirts is they had Discord, but it and like his headshot on there, but it looked like a rock band or like a metal like a heavy metal kind of you know, logo. So people would go around saying like, oh, it's Discord. It's like, oh, I love, like, where do they play? And they're just like, actually, he's from My Little Pony. I'm just wearing this so no one will know. So, you know, those kind of things, which I think, you know, is starting to get more mainstream, which is good. There's my spiel. Lauren, do you have anything to add about, you know, just this talk about, you know, being good role models to the cartoon loving community out there?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, actually, I feel like a huge part of, you know, why I feel like now more than ever before, it seems like it's easier to kind of, you know, to be more into cartoons and stuff like that, and finding more people who are into the same thing and finding more people who want to talk about it, is because, especially, I think the convention crowds say enough about it, is that now comic book conventions and Comic-Cons and all those kinds of places, now they're like way overcrowded with how, because of, I guess you could say, geek culture's been normalized to a degree. And that it seems like what was once just for a few people to get together and talk about, now way more people, especially after, you know, after you have like the Marvel movies becoming popular and stuff like that, you know, superhero movies, big, huge superhero movies became popular again. And so that spawned more people to go to the conventions, and then, you know, more animated content came out, and you know, different kinds of content came out on Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, and more people wanted to talk about that. Or there's online streaming stuff, and now more people want to talk about that. The internet has blown everything up. That's pretty much what I'm saying, is now you can find more people to talk about these kinds of things and share the interest with these other people. And I think that's, I mean, I know the internet's a double-edged sword, but wield it correctly, and you can find so much good stuff in it, including people that share the same interests as you and the same kind of like communities that will support you. And I think what's you know, compared to where we all were growing up to where we are now, I think it's great that we have a lot more people saying how it's okay to, you know, and it's not just okay, it's totally fine and totally normal to like cartoons and love them. And it's like, as long as it makes you happy, you know. And I think that's why it's like, it's even great where shows, again, like My Little Pony, or even like Miraculous Ladybug, or any other shows that were originally aimed for kids, is that something that it tells you a lot about the writing and the stories that they want to tell, and the characters and how they're written, is that even adults want to watch those shows, and because they see themselves in those cartoons, or they see role models and figures that they aspire to be because of the good qualities they exemplify, or maybe even some of the villains that they recognize, you know, they recognize themselves sometimes in the villains or adversaries because of the flaws, and or because of, you know, their backstory or anything like that, and that's what entices and intrigues more people, you know. And so in the end, you know, it's really important to be so supportive of other people, and to be supportive of yourself. If you ever feel like you're suddenly having those doubts of like, wait, what if you're having that moment, if you're sitting there, I'm sitting here reviewing a cartoon at 27, what am I doing with my life? You think, well, hey, what got me here, you know, is that I love cartoons, and I've always loved cartoons. I've loved animation. I'm passionate about talking about it and making it, and about drawing, and about talking with other people who love it. So yeah, that's why I'm here, and I'm gonna, you know what, I'll keep going. And so because in the end, it's like it's being able to recognize you have a passion for that, and for all of you at home listening, it's totally normal and totally okay to like cartoons no matter what age. Originally cartoons started off in like the vaudeville circuits, in like the Nickelodeons and stuff, and yes, before Nickelodeon the channel, there was the Nickelodeon, which was literally a nickel theater, that where you
go read a book,
go watch the Zoetropes. Take it way back. Yeah, but the originally like cartoons were made for adults going to theaters, because kids originally weren't going to the movie houses back in the day, like way, way, way back, before Snow White, before all that. And like I feel like there was another podcast where we talked about Felix the Cat and how
it was in the animation history one.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Felix the Cat.
Okay, so I was gonna say, did you ever? I'm gonna bring up the point from the other podcast. So Tariq, did you know about one of the old Felix the Cat cartoons where it ends with Felix finding out from his girlfriend that his girlfriend's pregnant, and then he kills himself by drinking like motor oil?
Yes, but I never thought. I was like 5, so I didn't contextualize it that way. But yeah, that sounds like Felix.
Let's just say I'm like,
that darn Felix.
Yeah. And then he just comes back totally fine after that, just casually comes back after killing himself with motor oil. But anyway.
And then there's like later Felix shorts. They're not really later, but like they're later than that one. There's like later Felix shorts where like he's like dancing around with his kids. So he learned to be happy about it, son. It's cool. He's a good dad now.
That's what we call character arcs.
Yeah. Felix the Cat had the very first character arc. He had the very first animated character arc.
Yeah. Oh, how far he has come. And how he's the face of a car dealership, Chevy car dealership in LA. Anyway.
Is that what they're doing to him now? I remember the movie in the anime. I think.
Oh God, from the 80s, right? That was from the 80s, right? The Felix the Cat movie.
For anyone listening, can someone buy the rights for Felix the Cat and Betty Boop and like do something good with them? Thank you.
Because that was Fleischer Studios.
Yeah, Fleischer.
So whoever's in charge of Fleischer.
There's a 90s Felix show, The Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat. That cartoon is nuts, but it's so good. But it's I don't think there's a weirder cartoon in existence. Like it's.
Oh, I'm gonna have to watch that now, because now I'm aware of that there is a show called The Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat. I'm like, okay, all it takes is the word twisted, and I'm like, okay, I'm in. What's it about? Let me give you that.
Like,
if it's anything like the movie.
No, it's not. It's like just to give a context of like what kind of show this is. We're talking about Felix the Cat now. Just to give a context of what kind of show this is, there's a joke where, like, Felix is like in the bathroom, and then like a guy comes in like through the window, I think, and like he does like a quick gag with Felix or something like that. But the way he exits is like the wildest thing I've ever seen. So instead of jumping out of the window, he physically moves the window over and then jumps through the wall and then moves the window back into place of the hole that he just made.
Oh my god.
So that's the kind of cartoon that is.
Yeah, that's a whole level of extra. Everybody who wants to be
super
extra
meta.
goes to be like, how extra are you? I'm like, I have to move a window I just came out of. Instead of going to the window, I make the window come to me.
So I think a lot of it's on YouTube. It's just really.
I'm gonna have to check that out now. So thank you for that.
Yeah, beats watching Tiger King or whatever the hell it is. But
that's not a cartoon. I can't watch that.
Yeah.
It's not a cartoon.
No, you gotta watch Beastars and BNA.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
It's drawings.
Yeah, we'll just rotoscope Tiger King and trick everyone to watch it. Anyway, it's bad. Don't watch it.
That would really work.
oh my god, take too long. It's like we have a missing arm, like with the fake or like ketchup blood or whatever. Anyway, so I was gonna tie to back a little bit. So a lot of times, because we're trying to deal with being quote unquote good role models, like I know we curse and stuff like that, but just kind of being the avatars for people that like cartoons and are kind of, I feel like this whole like episode is an allegory for like coming out of the closet or something like that. But anyway, it's okay to like cartoons. You do you, But anyway, I've met a lot of people in my time on YouTube who are not nice people, and they kind of use their YouTube-ness and their like subscriber number to be like have an inflated self of ego. And I know I know that kind of just ties with the category of when you feel like you're doing something that's very important. Not that you have an ego, Tariq, but I was wondering like how you balance that, or do you feel like you have pressure to be an inherently good person because you're providing this service, or you're kind of just trying to be the representation for people that might not have had it growing up, as far as just liking cartoons?
Oh,
deep
yeah,
questions.
Absolutely. a lot of okay, so there's a lot of things that kind of come with doing these videos. I've learned the first thing is that like I'm 1000% I am not the only black person on YouTube that talks about cartoons, but I feel like I'm the most popular. Like when people think about black animation, they always kind of throw my name out there, and there's a couple things that comes with that. One thing is you have to be very, very clear that whenever you say something, it is your perspective and your perspective alone. A lot of people, one of my friends, he said it jokingly, but it's true, is that a lot of the time, a lot of my audience, their only exposure to black culture might be through my videos. And if I say something and if I feel a certain way, they'll say, oh, okay, this black guy that I like feels this way about this, so this just must be how black people think. That's not how it works. And so you have to be really mindful of saying like, yo, this is just who I am. I can't speak for everybody or for every black person on the face of the earth. This is just who I am. And then there's the other thing where if you're talking about all these different things in the culture, you'll get a couple comments like, well, hey, how come you didn't mention this? You didn't mention that, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, well, that doesn't really, I don't necessarily connect with that, or I didn't feel like that was something that like I could talk about here, or what have you, kind of thing. And also I kind of felt like it was my responsibility as well to amplify any smaller voices that I saw, because there's so like I said, I'm not the only one, and there's so many other like black content creators that like talk about the same thing that I do. They care about certain shows that I don't care about, that people want to see me do a video on. It's like, yo, I have friends that have done videos on these things before. I get so many comments about Static Shock. I don't want to do a Static Shock video. I don't hate Static Shock. I love Static Shock, but I don't want to do a Static Shock video. And I have a friend, Review Your Life. He made a 20-minute Static Shock video, and it's one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. Like another friend of mine, D'Angelo Edwards from Hats Off Media, he did a Lunatics Unleashed video. I get a couple comments about that for whatever reason, but he did it, and it's really good. Like it's out there, and like there's so many other people that are speaking. That's why I do like those really big collaboration videos where I just kind of bring everybody on and like let them be heard. I hear so many times that like people find my friends through my videos, and like they may end up becoming bigger fans of my friends than they become of me, and that's dope. Like I want that to happen, because I don't want to it just kind of just be my voice. If the point of this is to make everybody feel normal and to feel like they belong, part of that is volume. You feel
Right.
way more normal when you see a lot of people like you liking the same things that you like. Like, if in terms of representation, like if you want to just kind of make like an allegory for that, like, yeah, like that's the thing. It's like you probably hear people say like, oh, um like there's no black representation, or there's no Latino representation, or what have you. And then there'll just be like some weirdo in the comments that'll list a bunch of examples from shows that have already ended. And it's like, yeah, okay, but compare that to the mountain of shows where there are no characters like that, and then you'll realize how minuscule that number is. And it's like, it's still, you're still gonna feel like the anomaly if the playing field isn't leveled, and like you could feel like there's like an equal number everywhere, kind of thing. Like, you're still gonna feel like you're the minority in that sense if there's not like a larger number. So there's a lot of really weird things that come with doing the videos. A lot of responsibility. A lot of the time I kind of shut up. If there's something, like if there's something going on and I feel like it's something that people want to hear me talk about, I just kind of like don't say anything off the fear of alienation, and I don't want what I say to be law to certain people. I kind of want people to marinate and think for themselves before they come to me like, yo, what should I think? It's like, I don't, relax. Like, I can't tell you what you should think about certain things. Like, I get like DMs all the time anytime something happens about, like, I don't know, Mike Henry leaving Family Guy and stuff like that. And
Right.
like
You're the expert, you know?
Yeah, like I'm like, yeah, I can't I could tell you how I feel about it, but you might not agree with what I say. You might agree with it, you might not, or you might just read what I say and think that this is how you're supposed to think, and it's like, oh, okay, thank God he gave me my opinion. I don't want to do that with a lot of people, with people, you know. So it's a lot. It becomes a lot to just kind of juggle sometimes.
Yeah, I can't, like, that's something I never really thought about too, is I thought, like, subconsciously people are like, oh, I watch black creators, like, let me tag Taraq, let me tag anime, or not anime, black nerd reviews, and those kind of people, like, look at me, I'm representing everyone, or I'm helping the man, or the opposite of the man. I'm gonna stop talking. Yeah, and like, it's like I just don't think about, like, the most I get is the girl ones, or like the ones about something specific to something that I'm passionate about, that I've done movies about before, but I'd never been quoted as like, this is the absolute opinion because KP said so, and I, like, it's just such a weird race paradox. I don't know, like, follow-up question, do you feel pressure to kind of like inherently be a good person, like, making sure you're being a good Samaritan and doing charity, and just making sure, like, because my thing is, a lot of times if I feel like there's something wrong with just someone's being bullied, someone's being harassed, I'm being harassed, whatever, like, something that I feel like I need to talk about publicly, or I need to address publicly, I feel like there's a lot of pressure to make sure I'm getting my facts right, making sure that I'm using my platform for good and evil, that I'm not two-faced as far as, like, I want to be a good representation for you, the people, but I don't want to be like a sneaky bastard in the background. Like, do you feel those kind of pressures as well?
Yeah, like, I could say with like, just like the recent protests and everything, when like everything first started to kick off, number one, when everything first started to kick off, I was like really like in a weird space mentally, as was, so I didn't speak on social media in general, and like I was kicking myself because I felt like I wasn't saying anything, and I felt like I wasn't doing anything. Like, I was just kind of home, until I just kind of came up with the concept to bring everybody together and do like this really big stream, and we got all this money to donate to the cause.
How much money did you raise?
5,400.
Nice.
It was really cool. It like blew my mind. like some of us even cried after. Like it was amazing. And like
Yeah.
it was like I didn't like I didn't feel right not especially like, you know, like I said before, like I kind of use the videos to kind of not only to push representation but to also push positivity. Not everything I talk about is like bliggity black. Like I talk about like Remy, Mr. Whiskers, and as told by Ginger, like I'm gonna do brace face soon. Like, you know, it's like, you know, I talk about the things that I care about. I try to push positivity towards animation and everything like that. So
Right.
like if I feel like I'm trying to um do the right thing and push all the right messages, it's like, all right, you got to do something about what's going on right now. You have to figure out something. And it could be daunting a lot of the time. And plus it's like I've kind of felt that pressure my whole life before I even had the platform. You know, I've always kind of felt like I just want to be a good person. If
Right.
if people remember me, I don't want anyone to have like a bad like perception or bad memory of me, and a lot of that is out of my control. But I would much prefer it not to be unanimous. If something were to happen to me and someone were to say, "Oh, I never liked him anyway," I would much prefer everybody to be like, "Wait, what? Why?" Instead of just like,
Right.
"Oh, okay, yeah, I feel you." You know, that's that like
Yeah.
that indifference is kind of like, because at the end of the day, you know, nobody's perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect human being unless you're Mr. Rogers. Like everybody's everybody's done something wrong. Mr. Rogers is the only person on the face of the earth that has done nothing wrong, like whatsoever. Everybody else is like they've made like some kind of mistake, something like that, like whether it be in their youth or what have you, like that's just kind of like what being a human is. Some people way worse than other people. You know, some things you might not be able to move past, but as long as your heart is there and everything you do is sincere, it resonates. It resonates with people. People understand it. They'll feel like you're a good person you when you let your personality out, when you let your heart out, when you get personal kind of thing. Like when you like
Right.
I did like a video on a boy named Charlie Brown. It's probably the most important movie like in my life, just in general. And like I got like such a response from that, just cause like it was humanizing. I wasn't just the guy that like told a bunch of jokes and talked about a bunch of cartoons, says that Chris Brown dies and stomped the yard in the first 10 minutes, and like I wasn't just that guy anymore. I was a person. People felt like they knew me, and like that kind of stuff is really is really essential to just like how you're perceived. And yeah, you know, sometimes there's definitely like a pressure to make sure that you do the right thing, but also if you know your heart, and you know that everything you do, you know your intentions, and you know that everything you do is pure, it's kind of like you shouldn't have to fear not doing the right thing, because everything that you do will be the right thing for you at that time. And not no matter how much you give people, no matter how much you tell people, you can tell someone your entire life story. You can write a book about it, but at the end of the day, nobody knows what it's like to be you except you. People could say, "Why didn't you speak on this? Why didn't you speak on that?" But you know, like I was in a certain space maybe, and like if you ask me why I didn't speak on it, and I tell you about the space I was in, you still might not understand it, and I might not understand it, but there may be something in me that like holds me back from saying certain things or doing certain things. I don't know. It's kind of like a universal thing with just people in general, really.
Yeah, I mean, Lauren and I have talked about this a lot before, just in general, but I feel like a lot of times too, because I don't think you've been around the YouTube block, or well, you have, but I don't know if you've had quite the levels of people being angry at you that I have had, but it's hard sometimes too because I feel that a lot of my humor is very cut and dry, or when you're just trying to make a joke, sometimes it kind of comes off as unempathetic, and you kind of get the opposite where people are just like judging you solely based on like one video or one comment or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think like one of the reasons I started the podcast, besides obviously, sharing stories like these, which, I'm passionate about. Like I've always been passionate about animation, not just like pony shit in general. But like I don't think a lot of people know like the quote unquote real KP, because a lot of times I hand myself up for the videos, or you put on a performance, and like that's intrinsically, words are hard, but that's just at the end of the day kind of part of the job of being a YouTuber, is that you're still kind of being you, but like in a different environment than just like you talking with your friends or something like that. And sometimes like
Mm-hmm.
making those jokes where you make fun of yourself, where you ground yourself, or you have fun with your audience, like it helps kind of people see this, like, or people ground you to be like, oh, like they're a YouTuber, but they don't think like they're hot shit. They're just someone like me at the end of the day.
Right.
And it's just something that I think as creators we all just kind of struggle with intrinsically, is just trying to make sure we come off as authentic, but also kind of come off in a way that is, entertaining, is a way that just like is self-aware too, that like we're talking about the stuff that's important to us. And sometimes, we're talking about the stuff that, frankly, bothers us, or something that we feel like is needing to be addressed. But I think it's sometimes it's really hard to find that balance of just making sure, trying to figure out when is the right time to speak, when that someone is being oppressed or abused, or like the wormhole that it might potentially open up. And PR is a thing, and I hate it and stuff like that. But it can be very emotionally draining sometimes.
Yeah.
Lauren, do you have anything to add to that? Like just as an outsider kind of thing?
Not really. And not as much
Good
as
talk.
not as much as not as much words as as you might have, but in the end,
Yeah.
I do feel like I do agree, where it's like to have that platform and trying to be careful with it, and saying in the end you can't please everybody. It's just kind of like, out of what I've seen as more or less a viewer rather than a content creator on YouTube, I'm more just kind of like the observer and the person interacting with people in the comments. But but yeah, I guess it's more just, you do what you gotta do. You make what you feel is right in the moment, and you can say what you say, and not everybody's gonna agree with you, and that's okay. That's the thing, is it's okay to post what you want and to have those different opinions. And as long as you have, and for certain things, if you're trying to try and spout off facts, well, then you need to have grounding for that. But and so looking at you reviewers who don't know what you're talking about anyway.
Right.
But with but in other cases where it's like you're just not going to be able to please everybody, and that's a hard pill to swallow time and time again, because we sometimes forget that in the end we should be making this kind of stuff because we want to make it, and we have content we want to share, we have thoughts we want to share,
Right.
and there's always the fear of backlash, or the fear of this and that, and fear of people lashing out about it. But it's in the end, it should be like, you want to be able to make this because you want to make it, and you feel like you have something to say with it.
Right. Right.
And that's why I know in various climates, and it's very hard to gauge what people will listen to and won't listen to, and what people want to hear and what they don't want to hear. But in the end, it's supposed to be what you want to put out, and what you
Right.
want to share. And that's something I guess I see as like a third person party overseer kind of person, is that it's just, I try to see things from as level a perspective as possible when looking at that, and just going like, look, somebody can say this and that, and you may not agree with it, or you may, but in the end, that's their thought and that's their opinion, and that's okay. Just respect that. You don't have to agree with it, and you don't have to disagree with it. It's like art. In the end, it is like art. It's about perspective when it comes to people sharing their content and their thoughts and opinions. So it's what you make of it. And if it's not your taste, then it's not your taste. So it's that's why when people get mad saying, oh, this video sucked and stuff, like, have more critique to it rather than just barreling in with an insult. Give thoughts onto why you think it wasn't good and where you think it could improve. That's where you can be more constructive about it. I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm rambling, but then in the end, just make what you want to make. Have the thoughts that you want to have thoughts about. That's in the end, that's okay. It's like, just respect that everybody's going to have a different opinion about something, and everybody's going to have different content that they want to share, and everybody's going to cover what they want to cover, review what they want to review, and that's that.
Right. I mean, I was going to say, like, at the end of the day, like, as creators, we're all afraid that we're going to get that one comment on our video saying, like, I loved you. You were the best thing. You inspired me, or you made me get my dog, but you made this one video, or you said this one comment, and now I hate you, and now I'm burning all my pictures of you. Like, you know, I'm just totally paranoid as far as just things like that.
Gotta love mob mentality.
You know, at the end of the day, you can't help them, you know, and a lot of the stuff I've said, you know, or just a lot of the stuff, you know, you always say is going to have that kind of, like, fear in the back of your mind as far as, like, oh, I don't want to isolate anyone, but also, too, like, you know, like, at some point, like, for people listening, you have to kind of realize that the YouTubers do kind of over-exaggerate their personalities for the sake of making a point, for the sake of comedy, and we try to be as sincere as we can, but at sometimes, too, you know, you have to balance it. So if you don't agree with the joke, please, you know, like, focus on the whole, I guess, and focus on, like, if you don't like this video or you don't like what we had to say, you know, we're just, at the end of the day, we're just people with opinions, and you don't have to agree with everything, or, you know.
Right.
You know, it's fine. Okay, 2 more questions.
Our word is not law.
I know it's late time. So, Tariq, do you have any advice for maybe kids like 12 or 13, or anyone like listening who wants to find a community, like an animation community, wants to find friends on the internet where they feel like they can talk about their animes, or do you have places to recommend to go as far as like where people can just talk about stuff besides comment sections? Or I can jump in if you don't, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Like, you know, you could jump on like maybe Twitter or something like that. But like, at least like for me, it was just kind of like, I just kind of made these videos, and then through watching other videos, I met people that made the same kind of videos, and various email threads and Twitter and stuff like that. You know, reaching out is always like the first kind of step. You see somebody.
I'll also add, don't feel sad, guys, when your favorite YouTuber doesn't respond to your emails about being friends. We're very busy, and sometimes we get burned from those kind of emails. Oh my god.
Absolutely, son. I get so many really nice emails, and I try to respond to as many of them as I could. But if you're listening to this,
we love you anyway.
That does not mean I love you. Yeah, that doesn't mean I don't love you. I love you any less or anything like that. I probably was sad when you sent that, so I probably couldn't say anything back. But it's okay. I love all of you. Yeah, that's really what I was gonna say too. It's like, you just like reach out. I get a lot of emails and stuff, and I get a lot of messages just from people, whether it be them saying that they enjoy what I do, or them asking for advice on how to produce certain kind of videos or what have you, like, and you know, like I don't get to all of them, but like I'm more than happy to respond to the ones that I do get to, and it's like,
or like at least
it's-
point people in
it's
the right
cool.
direction, you know.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Even if I don't have the answers, I probably know someone who does, or know someone that knows someone who does, or something like that.
Right.
You know, it's like reaching out is just kind of, it doesn't hurt. Like it really doesn't. It doesn't hurt. But yeah, you know, just kind of be mindful and kind of go into that, like sort of, I guess, protecting yourself in a way, so you don't feel bad if, like, maybe you don't get a
senpai doesn't
response
notice
right
you.
away, or don't get one at all. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. You know how many people think I'm like a star? You know how many people don't notice me, and I'm so sad. Happens a lot.
Yeah, I would also just recommend, I'll jump on that that train. So like, not to plug my own Discord server, but there's, you know, with the rise of Discord, there's tons of like different servers you can look up, as far as like if you're a fan of like freaking Beastars or whatever it is, you know, which we didn't have Discord when we were your age, kiddos. So joining those kind of communities and making friends that way, you know, when the plague is over, like getting out there and going to cons and, you know, cosplaying as your favorite character, people will stop you and be like, "Hey, I love your Rainbow Dash cosplay," and then you're like, "Hey, thanks," and then you end up having a conversation about Rainbow Dash or what the fuck ever, I don't care. And you know, then you end up hanging out with that person, and you making friends, and you know, like we just had an episode about cosplay. Like, you know, if you don't have any talent, it's okay. Go buy your costume at Walmart. It's about the thought that counts, essentially. So like, you know, don't be afraid to to represent yourself or represent your favorite characters, you know, as long as it's a socially acceptable setting. Please do not show up to your high school with a Rainbow Dash costume. I cannot, you know, make any promises as far as how that will turn out. But, you know, but I'm trying to think if there's any, like, I know DeviantArt has like a chat option and Tumblr has a chat option. So there's tons of different areas of the internet that you can go to, you know, with your parents' permission, obviously, to kind of start meeting your people and feeling like, because that was something that I had to deal with growing up. And I didn't really start feeling connected with the animation world and my passion until like probably college, really, you know, as far as making my own content and stuff like that. But, you know, there are options so you don't feel as alone. You know, there are options if your parents are like, "What the fuck is this?" You know, I just think of that meme where, the King of the Hill meme, where someone turns Bobby's room into like My Little Pony stuff, and Hank Hill is just like, what you doing, Bobby? Like, what is this horse stuff? You know, if you have a Hank Hill dad, you know, I think I always recommend, you know, therapy is good, and going to group therapy and being like, "Hey, this is just something I am into. I don't want to fuck a horse," you know. That kind of thing, there's always that option if you have parents like that in general. And then, you know, if you want to, you can join my server or whatever. But okay, so my last point is I wanted to ask, so out of curiosity, and I'm going to make you recount the story a little bit more in detail. So out of all the people, what made you want to do a collab with me as like just some random girl chick on the internet?
So I remember.
No pressure.
No, I remember when I was 13, 14, and like I was like obsessed with like MLP. I wasn't like obsessed, but like,
oh my god,
it was like that was like my vibe for a while. Like me and like my friend Elijah will like talk.
I just imagine like this
like
cute
that.
little like ToonariqicTariq brony, like, you know, just walking around and, you know,
Yeah.
just like,
One of
MLP
us,
is the
one
shit.
of us.
I had a shirt that said Brony. I was like, I was there.
Did you have the Rainbow Dash one that just says Brony and it's like a silhouette?
Yes, that's exactly what I had.
Yeah, that's the one of the classic ones, or like the one that's 20% cooler or whatever. I don't know, but anyway, keep on talking.
Yeah, nah, and And I just remember like I remember everything about your channel. Like I remember like your your pony and everything like that. And I remember I used to like watch your stuff like so very often. And then like I never like unsubscribed. So like when you would start like talking about like I don't want to say normal stuff, but like regular Disney stuff and stuff like that.
When you're not a fucking horse.
Pretty much. And because that's the thing, when I was doing the animation, I'm like, am I gonna draw the horse? No, I'm not gonna do that.
So if you're listening, can someone make a Tyrak pony OC?
Say no.
That'd
I
be
would
cool.
love that. I would love that.
You're talking to the right person.
I would love that.
Lauren's gonna go. Okay.
I want a horse.
What do you want want your cutie mark to be?
Who was I talking to the other day? One of my friends said that my cutie mark was gonna be like my hat, and I got pissed off about that. I don't know why I got mad, but
You can have it.
What is your talent? What is your talent? Hat.
Yeah, like what? Come on. I think that's why it made me mad.
It's like fucking Hermione, who's like making all the hats for the house elves, you know, in Harry Potter. Well, yeah, mine's animation based, so you can probably like find like mine have keyframes, and people are like, it's playing cards, and I'm like, no, it's not playing cards. They're keyframes.
When I was younger, I definitely thought they were playing cards, and then like,
well, now you know.
I looked close. I looked really close one day, and I said, "Oh, this is like an animation. Like there's like it's like something going on in these cards." That's kind of what told me what it was. But yeah, no, like when you reached out, it was really surreal, just like seeing the email, because it was like, is this who I think it is? No way, this is who I think it is. Like the notification came down on my phone, and I was like, this is nuts. Like I think I might have sent it to my friend, and I was like, yo, yo, look who just emailed me. Like it was really
cute baboo.
It was really surreal, and you know, it was really cool to do. Like just getting when you sent me your audio was, you sent me like the raw file. And so it was like, it was kind of in my head. I'm like, this is probably gonna sound exactly how I think it's gonna sound, and it did. It was really like, there was like a lot of like improv. There was a lot of like
yeah, I make really stupid jokes, and all my editors are just like, you need to stop improving. It's not as funny as you think. And I'm like, my mom thinks I'm funny though.
There was a lot of like editing notes and stuff. There was so much. See. There was so many times I can't think of a really good example, but there would be a point in like the recording where you would say like, maybe you should put this clip here, and I almost left the audio of you saying maybe you should put this, like I almost left that audio in like on purpose, but I was telling myself, nah, just chill out, don't do that, because that kind of stuff is just funny to me, like that, like illusion breaking, like I think that kind of stuff is hilarious.
It's like, yeah, it's just like, edit this part out. When you leave that in, it's just
yeah.
I mean, yeah, like, I don't know if anyone cares, but all the time, pretty much. So, like, the majority of my scripts they're not ad-libbed, except when I'm lazy, but those are, like, maybe like 5% of the time. But a lot of times, I don't feel like writing notes in my script, so I'll just wait for the audio, and I'll describe what I want in the audio, because, you know, that usually is easier for me to explain. I'm a talking person, so that's why I make everyone have meetings and I do a fucking podcast, because, you know, you can get so much information out faster when you talk versus typing. And that's like, I think when I reached out to Tyrak, it like I alluded to in the review, it took a while to eventually get the ball rolling. So I was just like, maybe if I just sit the boy down and we talk about stuff, like, and we set a deadline, maybe we'll go. And it kind of worked. But yeah, so, yeah, it was neat. I think, you know, as I start to move to non-horse stuff, I'm kind of developing like a little, like not a posse. Well, I guess a posse. I was gonna make a joke, but then the joke left on me. But yeah, I'm trying to kind of intertwine animation people not so much just like, oh, collabs because people are getting better analytics and I have to reinvent the brand. That's like a tiny part of it. But like, I also just really enjoy the process of having a different voice, because I've been doing videos by myself like for a long ass time, and to mix up the formula a little bit is just kind of refreshing too. So I appreciate you you collabing with me, and you also did like all the work, which was nice, and you drew cute KP. I get, did you just not want to draw Discord, by the way?
Oh, the necklace, right?
Yeah.
I what happened? Like I was like cuz I think like when I first, cuz I did a first pass, and just kind of every time I kind of do these videos, I just kind of do like a quick sketch to make sure I know how to draw whoever I'm supposed to be drawing. And like I remember I did your quick pass, and I just kind of made it like a normal necklace, cuz yeah, like I try to eliminate the details just cuz like
Right.
I do like an original drawing every single, like I don't reuse animation in any of my videos. I think the closest thing that I do to that is like the little guy in the back that like yells what I think the commenters are gonna comment. Like that's the closest thing that I recycle, but everything else is kind of like an original drawing. So I try to like eliminate a lot of details. But like at first I did give you like a necklace, but then like I think I like restarted my computer and I didn't save the file with that drawing on it. So like I like when I drew you again, I didn't do the necklace because I didn't have the little the reference thing. And I like when I by the time I realized like, oh, I did draw a necklace, didn't I? It was kind of too late. But yeah, long story less long. I looked and I was like, is that Discord? Yeah, no, I'm not. I can't do that. I was okay.
Fuck Discord. Like, it's fine. I want to draw him. Yeah, he's complicated to draw. I don't blame you.
I will not draw the noodle.
Yeah.
You draw a noodle, but it's actually like just like a macaroni noodle like necklace, like.
Yeah, I would have drew like an S.
Discord is macaroni.
Macaroni confirmed. All right. I think that's the end of things. Do you guys want to add any closing thoughts or any fun tidbits, or like make sure you guys subscribe to KP, I guess, because I'll forget to do that otherwise. Plug. Yeah, ToonariqicTariq, plug your stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube under ToonrificTariq if you haven't found me already. If you type it in and you see a picture of a black guy standing in front of a train station, you are in the right place. On Twitter, my @name on Twitter is my initials, TSH678, and yeah, this was really fun. It was really fun to talk about just kind of like growing up with this kind of stuff and how important it is. A lot of the times when I go on podcasts, it's
just
always
like the
fun.
Like
I
made a point to learn. Yeah, I made a point to learn. I'm like, if we're gonna do a podcast, it can't be the bullshit podcast. We have to come with a topic, and we need to structure like everyone and their mom is making a bullshit podcast. We need like we need to teach people shit or something. So that's what I try to do.
I think it's
Lauren,
great.
any other? Go ahead. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's any other plugs. What kind of pony do you want to be so Lauren can take notes?
I already have the body down, so it's all a matter of adding features.
just let me be an Earth pony.
Nice, best class.
People who
Sorry,
are ponies.
KP.
It's fine, Like I remember that one episode where like they were racist to like the Earth ponies. I'm just like, you can't do that. Like we're in a modern society where we can't be racist. Anyway, so subscribe, notify the bell. I'm really trying to increase my non-horse subscription, people. So even if you're a horse person, please remember to subscribe. It makes me feel good at night. Wait, no, not that the way. It makes my heart full.
Punch that like button in the face like a boss. Hit that bell for the notifications so that you can be updated on everything.
Follow us on Twitter. Join the fan server if you want to. I'll judge you there myself.
Links are below.
Links are below. If you you know, if you want Tyrak and I to do another collab, like, eventually, like, let us know. And I'll probably drag him. And, you know, it'll be fun. Okay, so I guess whenever Lauren's done, then you'll get your horse pony.
I love it. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Oh, Lauren, before I forget, send him the cow drawing you did.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely do that.
It's on Lauren's Twitter if you want to see the cow drawing. But anyway, thanks again for listening to Animation Communication. New episodes every Wednesday, 6 a.m. Eastern on the podcast things, and in the afternoonish for YouTube. If we don't forget, just yell at Tyrak. Make sure he plugs us too. All right, have a good time, everyone. See you next time, or if you're new, please watch all the other ones. I think this is like we're already in there enough, so it's good. So bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Animation Communication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping this show makes a difference in how people view animation and media, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation or media industry. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and rate those 5 stars, as well as tell your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our main YouTube channel, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, and turn those notifications on. My name is Scribbler, and you have been listening to Animation Communication.